You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day. I was down with an illusion, like a sparrow with broken wings. But now I shine with your reflection on me. I'm getting back up on my feet. That you showed up was written in my palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. You cut me loose and set me free. You make me win in every way. You showed me how to spread my wings. Yes, I'm the winner of the day. Yes, I'm the winner, yeah. 'Cause I'm the winner, yeah.
I swear to God, I thought I was in the stream when I did that, and I'm so sorry. I'm multitasking and clearly not doing a great job. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I love this song. I love this song. It just like puts me in such a great mood. And when you see who my guest is, you guys are going to be off the charts excited because I have the world's #1 brain coach with us. He is somebody who I have admired for so many years. He is such an awesome guy, and his story is just incredible. And if it doesn't motivate you to be limitless, I don't know what will. I am going to bring him in to the stream right now. Jim Kwik, welcome to Time for Coffee TV. How are you?
Andrea, I'm doing so well. I love your energy. I just grabbed my coffee also as well. So
I was gonna ask you. I thought you were gonna tell me you didn't drink coffee, but don't answer that yet. Don't answer, because when our actual interview begins, I want it to be
okay.
like not fake. I want to let our viewers know that what we are going to be doing here. I started doing this a couple weeks ago, and it was so much fun. I thought, let me see if Jim would be game for this. So I have a podcast called Time for Coffee, and let me put my little banner up there, right there, Time for Coffee.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And usually what I do is tape these interviews off in a dark corner somewhere. And then one day they appear out in the airways, the magical airways that is podcast land. And I thought, wouldn't it be so much more fun if we did these live so that our LinkedIn viewers, our Facebook viewers, our YouTube viewers could see how a podcast is kind of made behind the scenes. So
I love that. I love that. I love the behind the scenes. This is amazing.
Exactly. And thank you so much for putting up the Time for Coffee banner.
Yes.
That's so awesome. I need one of those for sure. So I'm just going on to LinkedIn right now. Oops, like
Okay.
that, because one of the things about streaming on LinkedIn is that you can't talk with people on the computer. You have to do it on your phone. So I'm just going to get onto my feed so that I can see where people are tuning in from, and that way we can kind of have a little conversation going. So what we're going to do is I am going to read an introduction to you, Jim, and we are going to get into kind of your journey to where you are today. And that's the thing that's so inspiring, right? because so many of us have struggles in our life, and we don't realize that those very struggles can actually turn into our purpose.
That's so well put. I think that our struggles can lead to strengths, that our mess can become our message, that when we go through challenge, it can lead to positive change. So I'm excited for this to be to contribute to people's journey. I think we're all on this journey, everyone who's joining us, whether it's live or recorded, to be able to realize and reveal our fullest potential. And I really do believe what makes us human really is truly limitless. And so I encourage everyone to share this. If you're watching this right now, share this with somebody who should be watching this, or maybe tag them. Also, because I feel like when you learn something, to teach it to somebody else or to share it, we learn it even better. And I encourage everyone to take some notes also. So this is going to be a different kind of conversation. So I've been looking forward to this.
Excellent. Well, me too, Jim. So here I go. I am going to start reading the introduction to our podcast. And for our viewers, we also want to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure to put that into the chat. Here I go. In 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Java junkies. Welcome back to another episode of T4C. If you're interested in learning how to become limitless, to upgrade your brain, to learn anything faster, including how to speed read and actually remember you just read, then this is the episode for you, because my next guest has quite literally created a roadmap to help you do just that. But before I introduce you to the amazing Jim Kwik, I want to make sure you've signed up for the Java Junkies Journal. Lots of alliteration there. That's Time4Coffee's newsletter that features career advice, insights, and the big takeaways that I've gleaned from interviewing hundreds of professionals like Jim in dozens of different industries in service of my mission to empower 1 million college students to turn your expensive college degrees into careers you'll love. Just head over to the Time4Coffee website at time4coffee.org, and the sign-up box is right there. Now, my motivated macchiato-loving listeners, please grab your mug and take a chug of your favorite caffeinated brew, because it's time for another caffeinated career conversation. And my absolutely incredible next guest is Jim Kwik, a globally recognized expert in memory improvement, brain optimization, and accelerated learning. After a childhood brain injury caused him years of suffering, including struggling to learn, Jim created strategies to dramatically enhance his own medical performance, his own mental performance. He's since gone on to help hundreds of thousands of others to unleash their brain's true potential. Jim is also the host of the acclaimed Kwik Brain podcast, that's KWIK, as well as kwiklearning.com's online courses, which are used by students in 195 countries. And by the way, I've actually taken one of Jim's courses. And most recently, he has become a best-selling author. His book is entitled, What Else? Limitless. Upgrade your brain, learn anything faster, and unlock your exceptional life. I also want to mention for our podcast listeners that we are actually live streaming this interview on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube. So I also want to welcome our viewers from around the world. I want to make sure you say hello in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. And we will be getting 2 questions at the very end of this interview. Jim, welcome to Time for Coffee. Are you caffeinated and ready to go?
I really am. I want whatever you're having. I love your energy so much. And Andrea, thank you so much for having me. I just actually shared this on my LinkedIn also as well. So hello to to just this incredible community that you have of lifelong learners. And so I'm very, very grateful to be here and excited for this conversation.
Well, me too. And I've already had my coffee today. And now I'm drinking water with actually a little bit of our mutual friend, Dr. Amon's.
Mhm.
He's got this little powder
He
that
does. He
you can
does.
put in water. And so I'm just hydrating at this point. But are you actually drinking coffee?
I'm not. I don't drink a lot of coffee, but sometimes when I feel called to it, I drink more of a tea drinker
Yeah,
myself. But the hydration is so important. Just staying hydrated will boost your reaction time, your thinking speed upwards of 30%. So I encourage everybody to grab their favorite beverage and let's get brainy.
absolutely. So because actually, I know because we had a little chat before we started this interview that you are not on the West Coast. You kind of go between the East and West Coast. You're here on the East Coast, which is where I am, and it is mid-afternoon.
Mhm.
But could you kind of take us into your morning routine, Jim? Because I know that plays such an important role in being able to optimize your brain.
Yeah. So hello to everybody who's listening and or watching this. I believe that if you want to win the day, you really have to win that first hour of the day. I believe that when you talk about routines, that the treasure that you seek is hidden in our daily routines. Yet, how often do we actually sit down and really think about consciously how to design it for a great day? So everyone's watching this, regardless of your age or stage. I hope one of these tips will be able to serve you. My morning routine, everybody has different ones. Oprah has hers, and Tim Ferriss has his. Mine is all about getting my mind right. I really feel like we're in the millennium of the mind, that we upgrade our technology, like our phones and our apps, more than we upgrade the most important technology, which is found between your ears. So my morning routine is about getting that online, and it really starts the night before. I think it's so important, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but prioritize your sleep. When you don't sleep, how are you performing the next day? How's your ability to make good decisions? Your ability to think critically, solve problems? How's your focus? How's your memory? Right? And so really prioritize your sleep. One of the things that I do before I go to sleep, and I have a whole evening ritual also as well, my morning routine, which I think millions of people have seen online. And I'll give you a little bit more detail here in this conversation, but also your evening routine is very important. But, I really want to prioritize my sleep. And here's one tip. I don't know, Andrew, if you had this experience where you had to get up one morning, particularly early, maybe like 4:30 in the morning, you set an alarm. And I don't know who's listening could relate to this, but you set that intention and you wake up within minutes or even
Yes.
seconds of that alarm going off. That's the power of the human mind. And what I'm interested in is what else is it capable of achieving? What if before you went to bed, that same intention or potential that you have to wake up at a certain time, that's pretty magnificent. What if you asked yourself a question that while you're sleeping for your dream state to go? Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein in her dream. Paul McCartney came up with the song Yesterday in his dream. So utilize that for performance, and don't get obsessed about the question or don't ruminate about, but maybe introduce a question, because your brain doesn't shut off at night. It actually goes in these creative places. And so I would say just test that out. The first thing I do when I wake up is I remember my dreams, and we could talk about that. There's 6 things I do every morning to recall my dreams, because a lot of times people do come up with treasure, but they forget it. And so that's interesting. And even if you have a family member, you have a team, you have friends, talking about your dreams, sharing your dreams, there could be some real amazing benefit from doing that. Another thing I do first thing in the morning, besides recalling my dreams, and I did a whole podcast on that, is as I mentioned, I hydrate. Just staying hydrated. You can lose up to a pound of water while you sleep through respiration or perspiration. And your brain is 75% water. And as I mentioned, staying hydrated will boost your reaction time, your thinking speed substantially. When I do that, I also take my probiotics. We talk about in the book the power of your second brain, which is your gut. And so you want to make sure you treat that well. I also make my bed first thing in the morning, and you're thinking, well, why do I need to do that for my brain? But how you do anything is how you do everything. and you do it with excellence, like much like they do maybe in the military, right? And with centimeters and angles, you train. It takes only 2 minutes to make your bed, but you train, you bring that excellence into other areas of your life. And also, your brain thrives on a clean environment. We talk about this a lot, but how wonderful does it feel to come back full circle at the end of the day to a well-made bed? You come back full circle to success. And so make your bed, take 2 minutes. And these are things that are not time consuming. Drinking water, making your bed, reflecting on your dreams for a minute or two. Another thing I would recommend everyone do is 3 minutes of exercise. And it's interesting, it doesn't have to be your full workout, but there was a study done at Appalachian State University saying for weight management, for deeper sleep, when's the best time to exercise? 7 a.m., 1 p.m., or 7 p.m. They tested morning, afternoon, and evening, and they found there was a clear answer. It was 7 a.m. That those who exercise at 7 a.m., even for a few minutes, 3 minutes of jumping jacks or some little bit of cardio, some jump rope, something easy, get your heart rate going. What's good for your heart is good for your head. Actually increased deep sleep upwards of 75%. And that's the restorative sleep we could all benefit from. It's not just the quantity of sleep, it's the quality. And so I do just 3 minutes. And again, even if you have kids or something, you could do that with your friends. You could do that with your children. And then a couple quick other things, little things you could do for your brain. Brush your teeth. And I'm going to challenge everybody who's listening and watching.
Left hand.
Brush your teeth with your opposite hand. And I've been talking about this for over 20 years. And what I found is we get a lot of feedback from our students and our community that we know that one part of your brain controls the opposite side of your body. That, God forbid, somebody has head trauma or a stroke, maybe on the left side of their brain. If there's paralysis that manifests, it'll happen on the opposite side. But it's not just a mind-body connection. There's actually a body-mind connection that by using your body in certain ways actually stimulates different parts of your brain. There's a study done at Oxford University saying jugglers, the act of learning how to juggle actually makes your brain bigger. You create more white matter. And so I always tell people, as your body moves, your brain grooves. But your brain, people say, like, what's a brain coach? It's kind of like a personal trainer. A personal trainer wants to get your body stronger, more flexible, more agile, more energized, right? Sharper. Well, I want your mental muscles to be stronger, more energized, more agile, faster, and such. And how do you do it? Through novelty and nutrition. If you want to build your biceps, you give it novelty, you exercise it, and then you feed it nutrition. Same thing with your mental muscles. And so giving it some stimulus is important. And even that could be physical activity. So using your other hand, your dominant hand, to eat or to brush your teeth. And so it builds those pathways called neuroplasticity. But what it also does, it forces you to be present. And I think it's so important now in an age full of distractions, where if you're in school or just out of school and you have trouble focusing and concentrating in a world full of rings and pings and dings and likes and shares and comments and videos and all of this, or even just a Zoom conversation, if your mind wanders, you read a page in a book, get to it and just forget what you just read, or somebody tells you their name and you lose it seconds later because your mind can't concentrate. Part of it is just being present. And here's one of the principles, because I found that there's always a promise behind a principle. And the principle is you need to challenge yourself, and with challenge comes change. And we've discovered more about the human brain more in the past 20 years than the previous probably 2,000 years combined. And what we found is we're grossly underestimating our own capabilities. Neuroplasticity says that we could actually your brain could get older, but it could grow better. You could create new connections where there wasn't, and it's not fixed, like your shoe size. So your potential, your intelligence, your memory, for instance, it actually all can improve through challenge. And so challenging yourself to brush your teeth with the opposite hand, not only does it build the opposite side of your brain, but it forces you to train your focus. Yes. Because many people can't do it and be doing other things at once because it's novel. So it forces you to be present, and building that muscle, flexing your focus muscles first thing in the morning will show up in the rest of your day. Because what most people do is the opposite. What do? They go on their phone. And if there's one productivity performance tool, yes, have a to-do list. But I also notice with the high achievers, the cognitive performers that I get to work with, who are so mentally fit, one of the things they do have is not only a to-do list, but they have a not to-do list, things that they will not do. And one of the things I would offer everyone to experiment on is don't touch your phone just for 30 minutes in the morning. The first 30 minutes, don't touch your phone, because often when you wake up first thing in the morning, you're in this relaxed state of awareness. They call it an alpha state, brainwave state, alpha theta, and you're very suggestible. And if the first thing you do is pick up your phone, you're rewiring your brain for two things that are going to affect your productivity, your performance, your peace of mind. And the first thing is it rewires your brain for distraction. Right? On social media, it's just all these dopamine. You get this dopamine flood, right? With everything that's novel, those likes and shares and comments and everything. But also, you're rewiring your brain not only for distraction, you're rewiring your brain for reaction, and that can be just as detrimental. Meaning, it trains you to just react to things, and you can't have a quality life. As you want to win today, so you could win the week and win the month and win your life, if you will. You can't win if you're just fighting fires and you're just reacting, right? Everybody here has had the experience where you get one message in the morning. It could be a voice message, social media message, a text message, an email, and it just hijacks your mood. And it puts you on a certain momentum towards something that maybe not most empowering for you or most encouraging. So I would say not touch your phone and see what happens just for a few days, try it out. And instead, maybe use that energy to do some of the things that we were talking about. The last thing I would offer is to take a shower. And most people, a lot of people do this, but I would recommend experimenting with cold therapy. That not only is the cold good to help you reduce inflammation, and they've seen inflammation as a marker for the majority of all diseases. It contributes, and it can escalate a lot of challenges that we have physically and mentally. But it's like a nervous system reset, almost as good, or some people say better than coffee. It's just like you get that cold shower. And I don't mean take a 5-minute cold shower. I mean, just experiment going from warm to cold, 5 seconds, 10 seconds as you see fit. The other thing it does, besides reset your nervous system and lower inflammation, it also, I think it's important to build your grit, to build your resilience, as we go through difficult times, right? To be able to persevere. And part of it is doing difficult things and not avoiding difficult things. I find that if you do something that's difficult, then your life gets easier. If you just do the easy things in life, procrastinate, put things off, life gets very hard. But if you do the difficult and hard things in life gets a lot easier. So maybe that if you train yourself to endure some cold, as an example, or whatever that is for you, it'll show up in having that difficult conversation, or to go on that job interview, or to be able to perform when you need to, even if you're a little bit nervous, right? Because you've trained yourself to be comfortable doing something uncomfortable.
Yes. Oh, such great advice. And I want to let you know that I do try to do the cold shower. I'm glad to say you can just start off like with 5 seconds, because that's about the most I can take is 5 seconds. How many seconds do you do?
So for me, for people follow on Instagram and Facebook, I'm a little bit more extreme. I met someone named Wim Hof. They call him the Iceman. Over 8 years ago, we were speaking at an event in Boston, and he's known for breaking all these records, and he climbs the Himalayas in his underwear and these various things. But so I actually have an ice bath, and it gets very cold. It gets below 40 degrees, and I'll sit in there for 2 or 3 minutes. Talk to your healthcare practitioner. Don't do anything unsupervised. But for me, I've been doing it for so long. But even in the shower, 30 seconds of cold, is wonderful to build up for, and just go.
Okay.
They say even ending cold, it's good for your skin. It's good for your hair. It's just a wonderful wake up. And I think we've all had the experience. You go outside in the cold, and it just kind of wakes you. It's amazing at getting your energy going.
Definitely. Well, Jim, I was thinking that we could kick things off today by flashing way back to before you liked taking cold showers, even before you found your purpose, to when you were just a little guy in elementary school. And you talk about this, you talk about the fact that you actually had a teacher who referred to you as the boy with the broken brain. What was school like for you, Jim? What was the experience like?
I appreciate it. I mean, what I'm about to share with everybody is just proof that, every professional was once a beginner, every expert was once was an amateur. And so I'm hoping through sharing this that some people could relate to it. My inspiration really was my desperation. And my parents, my dad immigrated here when he was 13. He lost both his parents in Asia. They didn't have a lot of resources. And so he had to come here because they couldn't afford to feed him. He left his siblings behind. He stayed with an aunt. And my mom worked and, lived in the back of a laundromat that, her parents worked at, didn't speak the language, those kind of situation. We didn't grow up with a whole lot, but we grew up with but I attribute anything that's good out of me came through my parents. Anything that's fallen short, it's really all on me. They're not the smartest or most healthiest or spiritual, but they're just really good people. They do what they say they're going to do. They're extremely kind, and so I feel like those attributes anyway. So that's more an ode to them. When I was 5 years old, and when people see me on stage, and on a typical year, it can be up to 200,000, 250,000 people live in audiences. I could be on 3 continents in a normal week sometimes, and but I do sometimes these demonstrations where maybe I'll memorize 50 people's names in an audience, or 100 words or numbers. Or I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you. I'm really doing this to express to you what's possible, because the truth is, everybody watching this, you could do this too, and a lot more. We just weren't taught. So I just want us to presence, whatever your age, your background, your career path, your education level, your financial situation, your gender, your history, your IQ, we are all limitless. What is limitless is not about being perfect. Limitless is about advancing and progressing beyond what we believe is possible. My thing is we weren't often taught how to access those modern day superpowers, and I'll get to how you do that. But I know it's possible because I grew up with learning difficulties that stem from a head injury I had when I was in school. When I was 5 years old in kindergarten, I had a very bad fall, rushed to the emergency room, and my parents said I was never the same after that, where I was very energized, very playful, very curious. I became very, very shut down. And where it really showed up was in school. Teachers would they would get frustrated because I didn't understand like everybody else. They would repeat themselves, and I would learn to pretend, and like a little bit of like imposter syndrome at that age, where I would just pretend to understand, but I didn't really understand, and I had poor focus, memory. It took me 3 years longer just to learn how to read, read and write. So it was a challenge. And when I was 9, as you mentioned, I was being teased by the kids in class because I couldn't keep up. And a teacher, I really think she came to my defense, saying that, stop, this boy, he has this broken brain. But all I remember was broken brain, right? When she said that in front of everybody. And that label became my limit. And I want to remind everybody here that if you grew up insecure, that you're not enough, or that you didn't have your path, or you're not smart enough, or you're just not like everybody else, there's no such thing as a good or bad brain. There's a trained brain and an untrained brain. Most people ask themselves the wrong question. They're like, it's not how smart you are. It's not how smart you are. It's how are you smart? It's not how smart you are. It's how are you smart? And it's been my experience. I'm going on close to 30 years of teaching this every single day. And the feedback I realize is that intelligence is not fixed, and it comes in many different forms. And often it's not necessarily cultivated as much. And that's why I love, what you're doing, because you're offering people expertise, experience, a new way of perspective, frameworks for people to fill in some of those gaps maybe they didn't get in their own education. Anyway, the long story short here is I struggled all through school, elementary school, middle school, junior high, even high school. I would be working hard, but I would be working 3 times harder as everybody else, but I would always barely get by. Like I would do a book report, but if a teacher asked me to present it in front of the class, I would actually lie and say I didn't, because I had a fear of public speaking. My superpower, I talk about superheroes a lot, it was becoming invisible. I didn't want to be seen, because when you feel like you're broken, you don't feel like you have a lot to offer people. So how did that manifest? I would sit all the way in the back. I would sit behind the tall kid in class. I would just shrink down all the time. Every time I didn't do well on school or pick for sports, I would say, oh, because I had the broken brain. That became my internal conversation. And I always tell people, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. When people come up to me and say, I have horrible focus, I'm not smart enough, I have horrible memories, I was stop. If you fight for limitations, you get to keep them, right? And so my mission, when I turned 18, I was fortunate enough to get into a local university, right? And I chose a place where I didn't know anybody who was going there, because I knew that their expectations of me would keep me in this box. You know what I mean? That often what keeps us stuck in our life is we're so concerned about the opinions of other people. And it's not easy, right? It's we get validated by, our family, our friends, and sometimes we don't find our own way of expressing ourselves. Sometimes we pursue a career path because it was expected of us from parents, or we go a certain way. And I talk a lot about that, with some of the learning that I've had. But to sum it up, when I'm in school, I was like, man, freshman, that means I can make a fresh start. And I could really show the world, show myself that I could achieve something, and I could do this. And I took all these classes expecting to do better, but I actually ended up doing a lot worse. And I couldn't afford to be in school as it was, financially or otherwise. And I was ready to quit. I don't know if anyone's ever had this experience, just when they're on the path that they feel like they have to do, right? And a friend of mine was saying that they was going to go see their family for the weekend, and said, hey, before you tell your parents you're going to quit school, because there's a lot of responsibility. I have two younger siblings, and I want to be a good role model for them. And I grew up in an Asian household, which wasn't like a tiger kind of but it was still, I wanted to do well and make them proud. And I was like, okay. And I go visit the family, and the family pretty well off. The father walks me around his property, which is on this beautiful water, and asked me a very innocent question, which is the worst question anybody could ask me at the time. He says, Jim, how's school? And even talking about it makes me get choked up. I broke down in front of this complete stranger, because I have all this pressure on me, and just tell my whole story: broken brain, injury, quit school. I don't know how to tell my parents. It would just be a big disappointment. And after I vent, he's like, Jim, why are you in school? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? What do you want to share, express? And I honestly, Andrea, I didn't have an answer. Like, nobody's ever asked me that question before. And I think self-awareness really is a superpower. I think for anybody who's watching, if this is useful, for me, fulfillment comes from two things: having the curiosity to know yourself, like really being fascinated about yourself. Like, who are you? What do you stand for? What do you believe? What's most important to you in life? What goes after I am, right? What's your identity? And that's why we do things. We journal, or we go to talk therapy, or sometimes in relationships, it helps us to learn about ourselves, or whatever we come to this discovery. And we never get to a point where we just know ourselves completely, but having the curiosity to know ourselves. But then the other part, going back to, other people's expectations, it takes not only the curiosity to know yourself, but also having the courage to be ourselves, right? And once you get to kind of know who you are, it takes another strength to be able to express that and be on that path. And I didn't have this answer, because I've never really gone inside. And I go to answer him, like, what do I'm in school? What do I want to be, do, have, share? And he pauses, and he reaches into his back pocket, and he grabs like a notebook, and he tears out a couple sheets with a pen and hands it to me, and says, it's important that I write this down. And I was like, okay, it's like, what are we back in school? I don't know why I'm doing this, right? I never. But I realized that writing things down is the first step in taking something that's invisible here in your mind and make it physical, right, outside of yourself. And so I write this list down, which, after, I don't know how much time goes by, but I have like a bucket list, right? All the things that I want to be, do, have, whatever, before I kick the bucket. And when I'm folding these sheets down to put in my pocket, Andrea, and he reaches out and grabs it right out of my hand, and then I'm freaking out, because I think most of us are fearful of being judged, right? And I don't know this person, and obviously he's pretty happy and successful, and now he's looking at my dreams that I've never shared with anybody, my goals and my fantasies, if you will. And I don't know how much time goes by, but he looks up and he says this, and I'll always remember it. He says, you are this close to everything on this list. And he spreads his index fingers about a foot apart. And I'm thinking, no way. Give me 10 lifetimes, I'm not going to crack this list. and he takes his fingers and he puts them to the side of my head, meaning what's in between is like the bridge or maybe the key, if you will, to unlock these dreams and goals. And he takes me into a room of his home that I've never seen before. It is wall to wall, ceiling to floor, covered in books. And it's a library in somebody's house, and I've never seen that. And keep in mind, I've never finished a book cover to cover, right? I'm very not a great reader. And so it's like being in a room full of snakes. What makes it worse, though, he starts grabbing snakes and handing them to me. And I'm looking at these books and these titles, and there are these biographies of some incredible women and men in history, some very early personal growth books, like Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, Napoleon Hill, Og Mandino, like these authors. And he says, Jim, I want you to do one book a week. And I'm thinking, have you not heard anything I've been saying? I'm ready to quit school. I have midterms. When I said school, he looks at me, he says, Jim, don't let school get in the way of your education. And I didn't realize it was a Mark Twain. This is well over a quarter of a century ago, 25 plus years ago. And I was like, that's really clever, but I can't promise to do it, because I promised to do it, I'm going to do it. And he's a very smart man. He takes out in his pocket my bucket list, which he still has, and he starts reading every single one of my goals and dreams out loud. And I don't know, Andrea, something about hearing your dreams, like in somebody else's voice, like incanted out, in the world. It just messed with my mind and my soul, something fierce, really shook me up. And honestly, a lot of the things on that list were things I wanted to do for my parents, things that they could never afford or would never do for themselves, even if they could. And with that leverage, I agreed to read one book a week. Fast forward, to put a bow on this, I'm back at school and I'm determined to succeed, right? I have a pile of books at my desk that I have to read for school and a pile I promised to read. And I already couldn't get through pile A. So what do? I don't eat, I don't sleep, I don't work out, I don't spend time with friends. I just live in the library, and not very sustainable. I end up passing out one night and fall down a flight of stairs, hit my head again, and I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. At this point, I've wasted away. I'm down to 117 pounds. I'm malnourished, hooked up to all these IVs. I thought I died. It was the darkest time in my life. And I thought there has to be a better way. And when I had that thought, nurse came in with a mug of tea, and on it had a picture. I have a picture here of a brain on my mug, but a picture of Albert Einstein. And it said this quote: "The same level of thinking that has created your problem won't solve your problem." And it made me think about insanity and doing different things and saying, what's my problem? I'm a very slow learner. How can I think differently about it? Well, maybe I could learn how to learn better. And I thought, where do I do that? In school. So I asked for a course bulletin, and I look at all these classes for next semester, and they're all classes on what to learn. Important math, history, science, Spanish, but no classes on how to learn it, how to focus, how to concentrate, how to study, how to read faster, how to remember the things, how to think clearer. And so I put my studies aside. I wasn't making much ground or traction there. And I started studying these topics, started studying accelerated learning, adult learning theory, multiple intelligence theory. I started studying ancient mnemonics, like what did the ancient Greeks do before there were printing presses? How do they remember things? The art of and science of speed reading. And about 60 days into it, 2 months, light switch flipped on, and I started to understand things for the first time. And I started to be able to concentrate. I started to remember. I started to do better in school. And with that, not only did my grades improve, but my life improved. But from there, I couldn't help other people. And one of my very first students, when I started tutoring this, she read 30 books in 30 days. Now imagine that, like not skim or scan. Imagine being able to go on Amazon. When you and I were talking before we started about some of our favorite books, somebody has decades of experience they put into a book, and you can sit down in a few days and read that book and download decades in the days. That's an incredible advantage today, right? Because it saves you time and all that amazing experience. And she read 30 books in 30 days, and I want to find out how, not how. I know how because I taught her why. And I'm always interested in human motivation. A big part of this book is about how to overcome procrastination, how to find your drive and your purpose, how to maximize limitless motivation, right? To really show up for yourself. And I found out her mom was dying of terminal cancer. Doctors gave her only 2 months to live. And the books she was reading were books to save her mom's life. And I get a call 6 months later saying her mom not only survived, but is really getting better. Doctors don't know how or why. They called it a miracle, but her mother attributed it to the great advice she got from her daughter, who learned it from all these books. And in that moment, I realized, and it put me on a whole path, that if knowledge is power, learning is our superpower. If knowledge is power, learning is our superpower, and it's a power we all have inside of us. It's just we weren't given an owner's manual on how to be able to unlock it. But it put me on my path where I took my pain, if you will, and I found my purpose. My pain was, learning challenges, not feeling enough, not believing in myself, not be able to utilize this broken brain. And now my purpose is showing people how to have their best brain, and so they can have their brightest future. And
Oh,
I
thank
know
you
that,
so much, Jim. That's such an inspiring story, and I remember reading about it in the book. It just kind of puts everything into perspective. In Limitless, you also talk about the 7 lies of learning.
yeah,
What are they?
we could go through a few of them. I'd love to highlight. It's one of those things where there's 3 parts to Limitless, and I take you on this hero's journey that I modeled from Joseph Campbell's work, and where everything from the Wizard of Oz to Star Wars kind of takes you on this path of going from the ordinary to an extraordinary, to going through trials and facing dragons and finding a mentor and getting that elixir and coming back to that, to the bringing it back to the rest of the world. So we take that path where I want to be everybody's Yoda, or I want to be their, and make them the star. And we have to go through 3 areas to get there, because a lot of people know what to do, and that's the methods. They want to be able to read faster, remember names, but their mindset is, I'm not smart enough, or I'm just, I don't have a good memory. Then you're still going to be stuck in that box, and you're still going to be limited. So the first section is on mindset, and that chapter, one of the first chapters, we talk about the 7 lies and that hold us back. And a lie for me, everything is always some kind of alliteration or some kind of acronym to help people store it and share it. Is a lie stands for a limited idea entertained. It's not true that you have a horrible memory. It's a limited idea we're choosing to entertain, and we're giving it a power, if we will. And so a couple of these lies are things like that genius is born. Right. I think this is something that we've heard along the way. It's just some people either have it or they don't. And the truth is that genius is not born. Genius is built. Right. That intelligence, first of all, it's not just like SATs where it's verbal intelligence and mathematical intelligence. There's many, many other forms. What about, amazing physical kinesthetic intelligence, like amazing dancers or athletes? What about musical intelligence? What about interpersonal intelligence? People are just amazing with other individuals. Or intrapersonal intelligence, people have just a knowing of self. What about visual spatial intelligence? You have your artists and your architects and your graphic designers. There's so many different forms, right? And so my goal in that first section is really to help people be aware of what these lies are, and then replace it with something that's more accurate, that's more empowering. So it's really a book. The book is about transcending. It's about ending the trance. This mass hypnosis through marketing or media that sometimes tells us that we're not enough, or that we are broken. That maybe I got it from, an adult that I came across, when I was growing up. But sometimes marketing or media or remember tells us we have to be fixed, or somehow we're not good enough. And so what I would say is that to everybody who's listening, that you're enough, regardless of what you created or built or done or anything, you're enough. Not because of any of that, because you always have been, you always will be. And it doesn't mean we can't improve, and that we can't want to progress and be able to advance. But I feel like this idea and this kind of mental virus where it's kind of, viruses are contagious, and maybe negativity is, but so is kindness, and so is wisdom. That's also contagious. And also believing in ourselves again, that sometimes if you look up in a tree and see that bird up in the tree, and it has this, and I've had some pretty bad falls and like 3 traumatic brain injuries, falling off of rooftops and other things. And I'm, a little bit hesitant about heights. That's why when people see me, I'm like doing a picture of me doing, I'll go, they zero gravity or jumping out of planes and stuff like that. But I'm still like imagining if I'm a bird, I'd be pretty like not as calm and confident if I was that high. But I realized that that bird is not calm and confident because it trusts that tree branch. It's calm and it's confident because it trusts its own wings and its own abilities. And so I want to remind everybody that if you feel a little hesitant or nervous, maybe that's a signal or a signpost to prepare, to do extra work so you can, have that competence loop that we learn in psychology. You can be able to access it. But one of those lies are that genius is born, and I believe genius is built. And that's been my experience, that I could take anybody and show them how to do better on an IQ test because we're just not taught how to do it. Another lie that's often like accepted is that that intelligence is fixed, like we mentioned before. We talked about the growth mindset and Dr. Carol Dweck's seminal work on growth mindset and how it could help you to adopt, where you look at yourself as not something that's fixed like your shoe size, but something that can be improved through discipline, through practice, that things are not set, that you are a thermostat, that you get set higher standards for yourself, and then the environment will raise because of it. Another lie I would say is knowledge is power. And I even find myself saying knowledge is power. But the truth is, all of the podcasts or books or mentors, none of it works unless we work too, right? That none of it works. The knowledge by itself is not power. It has the potential to be a lot of power. Knowledge times action and application becomes incredibly powerful. So you can learn something on a podcast that you're listening to, but I feel like it doesn't become power unless we think about how are we going to use this? How are we going to apply this? And scheduling it also as well, and putting in your calendar. One of the most powerful productivity performance tools there is your phone. And if you don't schedule it, sometimes you won't do the things, even the morning routine. You won't do it because you just forget to do it, right? And I believe first you create your habits, then your habits create you. And one of the good things to do is to prioritize. And what do you prioritize? It's not about time management. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. That's the only thing actually that's equal, right? Not everybody has the same level of education or the same contacts or network or the same level of income or wealth, but everybody has 86,400 seconds in a day. And so it's not so much about time management, it's about priority management. And I always tell people the secret is this: the most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing. Say that one more time for those who need to hear it. The most important thing is to keep the most important thing, and you can make it plural, things, the most important things, the most important things. And it's interesting with priority, it's only become like priorities, plural, just the past few decades. Before that, it was only priority, the one thing, right? But now if everything's important, sometimes nothing becomes important. But I think it's important for your studies, when you're finding your purpose, is to go back to what's most important to me in my life. Even what's going on right now, if people are physically distancing themselves or they're working and learning from home, now's a great time. Solitude is an incredible opportunity for self-reflection, to be able to go inside and say, sometimes when you're going all day at school or all day, trying to figure out where you're going to go, we don't take time to pause and say, am I going in the right direction? You're going 100 miles an hour, but ask yourself this question: what's most important to me in life? What's most important to me in my education? What's most important to me in my career, right? And then you have your North Star, and then say, are my actions each day, are they aligned with that? So many people feel burnt out and they say, I'm exhausted. I have so much going on. And maybe you're not burnt out because you have so much to do, because you're doing too much. Maybe you feel burnt out because you're doing too little of the things that make you come alive, the things that you hold dear, the things that you value. And this is the kind of thing that I was fortunate, of learning when I was back in school and university, because I had a lot of pain, and that pain made me ask these questions to be able to get out of that pain. But I would say you don't have to go through those challenges. You could create, the challenges inside for yourself and saying, what lights me up? And also, what won't I stand for? Because you get your purpose or your passions through the things that light you up, but also the things that you hate, also as well. And getting you enough novelty and finding passion, you can discover it and also develop it.
Well, speaking of pain or painful experiences, Jim, what advice do you have for job seekers out there today? Let's say our young job seekers who, like everyone, are getting so discouraged because the job market is so bad. It's so much harder to find a job. And of course, the coronavirus is still around. We're doing this interview for our podcast listeners at the end of January of 2021. How can they inspire themselves and keep their motivation moving in the right direction?
Andrew, that's the question, really. I mean, this is such you ask such thoughtful questions. I would say my answer for those who are thinking that trying to manage their mind in times of crisis, trying to figure out to find certainty in uncertainty, is that there's a quote in my book from a French philosopher that says, "Life is the C between B and D. Life is C between B and D. B is birth, D is death. C, life, choice." That I believe that first, the mindset that I have, I would encourage everybody to kind of look from this lens to see if it agrees with you, is that these difficult times can define you. These difficult times can diminish you, or these difficult times can develop you. We decide, going back to the power of choice. And what I would say is that certainly I would say to maintain your agency, to be that thermostat, not thermometer. That a thermometer reacts to things and it reacts to the environment, and we all react to everything, right? The weather, we react to the economy, we react to politics, we can. But to the degree my experience has been, people are happy and feel like they're successful is to the degree they feel they have agency, that things could be happening here, but the thermostat, as we mentioned, doesn't react to the environment. It gauges the environment. So get your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the job market, in opportunity, but also it sets a standard, or it sets a goal and a vision, and the environment reacts to it. And I would say that a big lesson that I learned, I got to talk about superheroes. The reason I talk about superheroes so much is because I couldn't read, as I mentioned, and I struggled every single day. I would get nervous every single time they passed around that book in class. I taught myself how to read by reading comic books when my parents thought I was sleeping late at night, and I would escape out of my pain, there. Something about the hero's journey really found that there's hope, that there's people I really want to help, that one person can make a difference. Years later, though, I got to introduce two modern day superheroes together over dinner that they wanted to meet. It was Richard Branson and Stan Lee. And not Stan Lee, but Stanley, like Stan Lee, the creator of all these incredible superheroes. And in the car, I needed to know this. I was like, "Stan, you created X-Men and Fantastic Four and the Avengers. Who's your favorite?" And he says, "Jim, it's Iron Man." And I was like, "Wow." And it's like, he said, "Jim, who's your favorite superhero?" And I have this like Iron Man case on my phone. I have like Iron Man like left, and then I have a real life like 7-foot Iron Man in my home. If people see that on Instagram, but he said, "Who's your favorite superhero?" And I said, "Mine is Spider-Man." And when I said Spider-Man in his iconic voice, and he says, "With great power comes great responsibility," right? And I still. Because my traumatic brain injuries and, I sometimes flip words around, and I heard something different. I was like, "You're right, Stan, with great power comes great responsibility." And the opposite is also true. With great responsibility comes great power. When we take responsibility for something, we have great power to make things better. I have people watching on video. I have this, I got this art. It's a picture of Stan all the way to the top of my office. And I put it up on all the way up on this top here to remind myself of that lesson, that it's actually made out of candy. Stan he was like the youngest old person I ever met. He had two passions. He would still, his late 80s, he would still go to work 9 to 5, because he found he passionate about telling stories, and his other passion, was his wife also as well. So I really respected him, but he was also so playful, and he learned so much. And he's just, I think he's a model, an archetype in my mind of what our potential really could be. But I put that up there because it reminds me of responsibility. So my advice to somebody in school looking for advice, or even out of school looking for a direction, is to take responsibility. That actually gives you power, because you're not at the effect. It gives you the power to make things better. That up to this point, we're shaped by our past and expectations, experience, and everything else, but we are 100% responsible for our life today and moving forward. And so I think that where that comes into play in our choices is now is the best time to level up. That you don't want to shrink what's possible to fit your mind. Let's expand our mind to fit all that's possible. And part of that is not downgrading your dreams to meet this current situation. There is a reality of the situation, certainly, but don't downgrade your dreams and goals to meet this current situation. Expand your capabilities. Expand your focus, your discipline, right? To learn new skills, the skills that could help you, because the future belongs to the creators, right? Even before what's going on, jobs are becoming automated. They're going to machines, artificial intelligence. What's truly not going to be outsourced as easily is what makes you limitless, the mind. There's no limit to your creativity. There's no limit to our ability to solve problems and add value in the workplace. There's no limit to our ability to imagine. There's no limit to our imagination, right? There's no limit to our ability to come together at this difficult time, to focus and to persevere. And so what I would say is to play at the edge of those limits and to make time. Take time. You are your greatest work of art. You're the greatest art you'll ever create. Make time to create magic. Upgrade your skills. And I think one of the most important skills, learning how to learn, right? That is the advantage, because if there was a genie could grant you any one wish, but only one wish, you would ask for limitless wishes. So everyone would ask for millions of wishes. If I was your learning genie and I could grant you one learning wish to help you become a master, very competent expert, any one subject or any one skill, would it be negotiating? Would it be investing? Would it be sales? Would it be marketing? What would it be? It would be learning how to learn. That would be the equivalent of asking for limitless wishes, because if you can learn how to learn how to study well, learn how to master technical information, to be able to focus and concentrate, remember to retain information, be able to read it faster, be able to process it and apply it. You could apply that towards what? Everything else. Money, management, martial arts, marketing, music, everything in your life gets easier. So I would say that person that there is an amazing amount of opportunity right now. We have so much abundance. We have more connection because of these little devices that we have in our pocket than President Clinton did when he was in office, right? We have more access. We have unfettered access to anything. You want to learn speed reading, salsa, Spanish? We have podcasts like this. We have YouTube, right? An incredible opportunity to level up, our learning. And the faster in today's economy, the faster you can learn, the faster you can earn. In today's the faster you can learn, the faster you can earn, because knowledge is not only power, knowledge is profit. And I don't mean just financial, but that's obvious, right? But I mean all the treasures of your life. There's a growing divide, not just in material possessions. It's those who know and those who don't know, right? And our ability to learn rapidly and translate that learning into action is the ultimate competitive advantage in today's knowledge economy.
Excellent. Jim, just in our remaining few minutes here, I just have quick questions. You mentioned our ability to learn and how most of us have never been taught how to learn. But we were taught at a very young age how to read. And in fact, as you go into in Limitless, that is one of the reasons that many of us are not able to speed read.
Yes.
Can you break that down?
Yeah, let's go there. My goal in writing this book, my teachers would have been surprised if I wrote a book, read a book, even much less wrote a book. And what I would say is, my goal was to make this book not necessarily the most bought. We were very fortunate that we ended this year and started this year as the #1 nonfiction book on Amazon. It actually exceeded President Obama's book also as well for the entire week, the #1 book. And I think it's more of a testament to where people's mind is in 2021, that they really want to aspire again. They want to dream again. They want to think about limitless possibilities and potential. And so part of it is becoming this butterfly, and while the beauty is in the butterfly, the growth happens in the cocoon. And I wanted to make this book not necessarily the most bought, but the most read. And so we do a whole chapter in the book on the art and science of speed reading. I think it's an incredible advantage to have this ability that most of us, like when you get into your job, we just spend 4 or 5 hours a day just processing information. You think about you're drowning in emails and media and propose whatever you have to study for your school, your work. And if you could just cut that in half, 4 hours could become 2 hours, and you save 2 hours a day over the course of a year, or even 1 hour a day over the course of years, 365 hours. How many 40-hour work weeks is that? That's 9. 2 months of productivity you get back by saving 1 hour a day on something ubiquitous like reading. So in the book, we really talk about not just the art of speed reading, but also smart reading, how to not only read faster, but understand what you read, retain what you read, apply what you read. And so when people go to limitlessbook.com, we actually gift them a 10-day basic speed reading memory course so that, and we donated all the proceeds of this book to charity, to education initiatives, to women's Alzheimer's funds, and memory of my grandmother. I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's when I was 6 and a half. So when I was going through my learning challenges, she was taking care of me because my parents were always working, but then I started taking care of her at 6 or 7. So it was really something that's very passionate for me, my purpose. But going back to speed reading, reading is it's not something you're born to be able to do. You learned it, but the last time you took a class called reading, how old were you? 6, maybe 7 years old. So the difficulty and demand has increased tremendously. But is it fair to say we still read it at the same time we were taught, last taught? And what I would say is there should have been a class shortly after that on how to read with better focus, retention, and understanding. And so one of the things everybody could do here is, and in my Instagram profile, there's a link I just put for a 1-hour masterclass, if that's okay. It's free.
Sure.
People could do that. It's jimkwik.com/reading for those of you who want to go directly there. You bring a book online and I take you through exercises. But one of the things you could do right now is use a visual pacer while you read. I found that after teaching this for almost 3 decades is that slow readers will read and they'll back skip and reread words unconsciously. And it takes more energy, it takes more time to do that, and it doesn't help comprehension at all. And so, but having a visual pacer pull you through as you underline with a pen, a highlighter, your finger, a mouse on a computer, we've shown that it's actually boosts your reading speed and focus 25 to 50%, which is a tremendous gain. I mean, you think about how many people would love to get 25 or 50% return on their investments, right? But reading takes time, and time is money, right? And so just boosting your reading speed 50% can save you 20 minutes on every hour of the day. And that really adds up. And so just underlining the words, not touching the screen or touching the paper as you're reading will boost it. And you don't trust everything I'm saying. What I would recommend is grab a book and then put a little mark in the margin, time yourself to read for 60 seconds, and then just without your finger, just how you normally read, and then put another mark in the margin at the end of 60 seconds, count the number of lines you just read, and then pick up where you left off using your finger, just underlining the words, not skipping or anything, and then time it for 60 seconds, count the number of lines. And that for most people, that second number will be a lift of 25, 50% with just 30 seconds or 2 minutes of practice. And so those are the little kind of brain bites that we teach in our podcast. In this book, we have a whole bunch of quick starts in there on like a 60-second exercise you could do to show measurable results. And my thing has always been that there are little things that I've identified that are like the lead dominoes, that if you hit that one domino, for anyone who plays dominoes as a game, you can hit a lot of other dominoes. And learning how to learn, it's called meta learning. Meta learning is learning how to learn. Metacognition is thinking about your thinking. Is a meta skill. And when you could do that, it makes everything easier. When you learn how to speed read, all the other things you have to read after that gets easier. It's like in one of my favorite books, and I mentioned a lot of books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey, his last 7th habit is sharpen the saw. That if you have a lot of wood you need to cut, but if you have a dull blade, when's the best time to sharpen it? In the beginning, middle, or end. If you wait to the end, you're going to struggle a lot. You're going to waste a lot of time. You're going to suffer a whole lot. You're going to stress a whole lot, as opposed to taking time to sharpen your skills, and then everything gets easier after that. That's what this book entails. That's the nature of our work. We want to upgrade those skills, upgrade your brain, so that if you had higher technology here, like if you have slow technology, your technology, it could be your phone or your computer, it's just slow. And it takes so much time, and it gets jammed up, and you have to reboot it, right? But if you upgrade your technology, your systems, everything is free flowing, and you can handle a lot more. You can remember a lot more, and you can work faster. And there's an ease to it. Reading or recalling 2 or 3 times faster, it's not extra work. It's not frantic fast. It's like an ease. If somebody is more physically fit, if they're going to go up a hill, somebody who's not could struggle and sweat and huff and puff. But somebody who's physically fit, they could do it with ease, and they can enjoy the journey. My goal for everybody here is, I believe you have genius inside of you, that your life is like an egg, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if it's broken by an inside force, life begins. And great things tend to begin in the inside, like that egg. And I believe everybody has genius and greatness and superpowers inside. And if you can't tap into it, it's just because we weren't shown how. What if you were born with these incredible superpowers, not to leap tall buildings in a single bound or shoot lasers out of your eyes? What if you have this ability to leap tall, textbooks, go through that? Or what do you have the ability to have this incredible sharp laser focus? What if you could have this bulletproof memory, right? What if those are your modern day superpowers that will help you show up in your career, in your college, in your education with confidence? And
Absolutely amazing. 2 final questions, Jim, and these are questions I try to ask all Time4Coffee guests. You've already talked about that time in your youth when you really struggled. You had that personal struggle. But I'm curious on the professional front, if
yeah.
you've ever faced any big challenges. And most important here is how you persevered,
Yeah.
and if there was a lesson that you learned in the process, because I think it's so easy for our young listeners, our young viewers, to look at someone like you and say, oh yes, Jim really had a tough
Mhm.
time until he was in college, and then fortunately he was able to teach himself out of his dilemma, and ever since then it's been smooth sailing.
I feel everything you're saying, because I think everyone has had that experience, and I've had so many of these. So here is, I'm just thinking about which one to choose, because I believe that these mistakes are stepping stones, and that maybe failure is not the opposite of success. Maybe it's part of success. Maybe if failure is not an option, then neither is success. I think Seth Godin said something like that. And so what I would say is, I've had a number of challenges along the way in my career over a few decades. One of the most recent ones I'll share is just this past year. I know a lot of us are in a new environment. They call it like a new normal. But this book was my very first book. And people ask, I don't usually talk about this, but why I waited so long to write this book. And the truth is, I'm still very introverted. I'm also painfully shy. It's not something that I've had book deals or go on media offers or franchising opportunities, all these ways of sharing my purpose. But I never said yes ever, because I didn't want to be famous. I just want to help people. But a couple years ago, I was in a car accident and I almost died, and put things in perspective and made me think about legacy and what I leave behind. And so part of what my answer came up with was to write this book, because fundamentally I feel like I'm a reading teacher, and so I wanted to share books that have shaped my life. I mentioned, my path, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do that and regret that. And so I signed the book deal the next day after that. And but when the book launched, it was scheduled to come out in late April of last year. And really the beginning where everything was locked down, and I had this opportunity to move it, the launch date, to some future date. And I said, no, this book is more than a book on speed reading, remember names, and learning languages. This is a book about managing your mind in times of crisis. This is about how to optimize your productivity, your focus when you're learning or working from home. This is a thing about learning a new skill or a new subject if huge industries have just disappeared or been disrupted. So I chose the challenge was to launch this book, and I had 34 speaking engagements at that time set up. Everything, the big ones, South by Southwest. I had a big Barnes & Noble national tour that was set up. 100% of everything got canceled, 100%. And so one of the biggest challenges I had was, how do I get my life's work that I've waited 3 decades to produce to the world when everything just turned off almost overnight? And the lesson is, I've trained myself to ask this question, and I would offer this to everybody who's listening, is to ask this dominant question when you're faced with challenge. Where's the gift in this? Where is the gift in this? As an example, my 2 biggest challenges growing up as a child were learning and public speaking. Now, the universe has a sense of humor, because what do I do all day, every day, is I public speak on this thing called learning. And what I would say is, where's the gift in these kind of challenges? And maybe things aren't happening to you, maybe they're happening for you. And maybe it's a limited idea that things are happening to you, limited idea entertaining a lie. Maybe what if it's happening to you, and asking yourself a new question, saying, where's the opportunity in this? Where is the gift in this? So me being regulated for being at home, I haven't gone on a plane in a year, all this stuff, says, wow, and so I pivoted, and we put everything online. Instead of doing these live gatherings at these big conferences, we started to do these podcast interviews. We started to do Instagram lives. We started to digitize everything to be able to get the word out there. And honestly, I did more connections and reach more people working digitally and remotely than I ever could fit into a ballroom or traveling, to another country. And so I would say is going back to these things about difficult times, that these difficult times can define us, these difficult times can diminish us, or these difficult times can develop us. And I would say find the opportunity in the things in your current situation and own it, and find the benefit of these. Because no matter your age or stage, because I know people are watching this everywhere in different places in their life, many people are paralyzed by the thought of making a mistake. But just remember, and you can even write this down, that mistakes are proof that we're trying. Right. And when you learn from them, you have the power they have the power to turn you into something better than you were before. And also just a reminder to everybody here that you are not your mistakes. When you make a mistake, keep in mind that it doesn't mean anything about you as an individual or a person. Many people make the mistake and jump to the conclusions about their self-worth. And just remember that no one is perfect, and that's okay. That you make mistakes, but mistakes don't make you. And they are here to guide you. They're here to not define you. And when you place them underneath your feet and use them as stepping stones to rise up to another level, because everybody makes mistakes. And it's not how we're going to make mistakes, but how we're going to deal with them that more defines us. And you don't even have to be proud of your mistakes, but you can be proud that you grew from them and they made you into a better person, the person that you are today, right? And so what I would say is challenging times, they reveal character, they reveal our commitment. And right now it's hard. So self-kindness is so important. Have compassion for yourself. If you're not making the progress that you hope, don't compare yourself to everybody else. That's not the goal, right? The goal, envy as they say, is the thief of joy. Compare yourself to the best version of yourself. Compare yourself to the person who you were yesterday. And I feel like that if you had that we adopt more of that mindset, it'll give us some kind of peace and less judgment about ourselves, where we can go and be compassionate, to ourselves. We're facing something the world's never faced before. And, but if we keep showing up, if we always work hard, if we're always committed to learning, along the way, if we're kind to other people, the results will show up for ourselves.
Oh, that was so beautiful, Jim. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I'm so sorry to hear about that terrible accident that you were in. But
Mm.
I mean, look at what it produced. Look at what it produced.
And I think everybody who's watching this, we've all had a set of challenges and adversity, but I bet you some people who are here listening to this, they've gone through some challenges that maybe they wouldn't wish upon anybody, but they wouldn't change it for themselves. That through that challenge, they found something. Maybe they found clarity about what's important to them. Maybe they found what they're capable of. Part of this process that we're going through is not just learning new skills and committing, is really, self-care. And part of self-care is self-love, is falling in love with that person in the mirror, who's been through so much, but is still standing. Right. And so I would remind you that, that self-esteem and self-confidence, all that's is built around self, because you're not going to get that from somebody else. Going back to personal responsibility, I would say to have that extreme ownership, over yourself, be responsible. And because, when we blame, we put the power outside, right? When we make excuses, I feel like that we use an immense amount of energy. It takes an immense amount of time for something, and nothing changes because of it. And what I would say to everybody, is take small, simple steps. I call them S3s. What is the tiniest action you can take? Don't thinking is good, but overthinking and wanting it to be perfect, you're just going to cease progress before it even starts. How can you break this down into something really small? What is the tiniest action you could take right now that will give you progress towards your goal, where maybe you can't even fail? If it's something simple like, hey, Jim says, as your body moves, your brain grooves. When you move, you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, which are like fertilizer for your brain cells. But I'm not exercising because of, the gyms are closed and everything else. So maybe it's not like working out for 45 minutes. Maybe that's too big. Maybe a small, simple step is to put on your running shoes today. Maybe, studying for 45 minutes a day is, like, if people see pictures of me and Oprah or Elon Musk or any of these individuals, we bonded over books. I always say leaders are readers. But if you're not reading every single day for half an hour or 45, maybe that's too big. Maybe a small, simple step, opening up the book, reading one line in a book. How can you break this down so it's super, super simple and not overcomplicate things? Part of success is getting rid of the excess stuff and making it, more elegant. And so what is the fundamentals? What are the principles? What are the things that will make the biggest difference in your life? And focus on those.
I'm so glad that I have this as a recording, because I can just play it back every single day. I'll have Jim Kwik inspiring me every day. Of course, they can get that on your podcast. I have one final, very quick question to ask you, Jim. And that is, if you could go back to college, go back and do it all over again, but
Wow.
based on the immense wisdom you have right now, what advice would you give yourself?
Back in college. Besides things like buy Apple stocks and all those stuff, I would say, my answer is repetitive, but I'll give you two. My answer would be the reminder that I'm responsible, that my past and everything helped create me to where I am, but I am responsible for where I am now and where I'm going. So I always start with personal responsibility. But my other answer is that, all right. So I struggled all through school. I was bullied, then it was kind of a challenging time. And that's why when people see me on social media and I have a 10-foot Hulk in my backyard, and I kind of indulge in like a lot of superhero things because it's like me living my second childhood. I would say that besides you are responsible for your life, I would remind that individual that you are enough. And I think that a lot of our insecurities come from other people's opinions and other people's expectations. And I spent an inordinate amount of time with the elderly, with seniors, maybe because I lost, all my natural grandparents, before I was a teenager. And I feel like there's so much wisdom that's there. And I would go to, before things were closed down, senior centers and help them polish off their memories. But also I would hear amazing experiences. And I believe the life you live are the lessons you teach. The life we live are the lessons we teach other people. But I also hear some regret consistently. And usually the biggest regret is these unfulfilled pasts that people have. And I'm just here to remind you, like, maybe they had a regret about they pursued a career because it was expected by parents, or they didn't date somebody because, what other people would think, or something like that. And I would remind you, my lessons, this is my advice would be to that kid, that when we die, or when we're in that casket, it's not a fun thought experiment. There's no room in there for possessions. You could have toys and that's all good and everything, but there's also not a lot of room in there for regret. That when we're taking our final breaths at the end of our life, none of other people's opinions are going to matter. None of our fears are going to matter. What's going to matter at that time is how we laughed, how we learned, how we loved, how we lived. And I would say the most important thing, and keep the most important things, that don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from, right? Choose your peers. Choose the people you're going to spend time with. That sometimes our family and our friends, they could be well-meaning. They could be sincere, but they could be sincerely wrong, right? And sometimes your passion, or more of your purpose, but you have to quiet the external noise because it's been buried underneath other people's expectations. And I'm saying, my exit would be like, there's no one path to get you there, is to give yourself, it's like when people say they want to find true love. I don't think you find true love. I think with your passion, it's the same way. Your passion is what lights you up. Your purpose is how you use that passion to light other people up. My passion is learning, and it wasn't always learning, but I discovered and I developed that passion of learning. And what's my purpose? My purpose is teaching other people how to learn. My passion, what lights me up, is learning. My purpose, what lights other people up, is teaching other people how to learn. And how do you find it? Give yourself enough experience in your life. Give yourself enough novelty, stimulus, to be able to see where your heart takes you. Try things at least 3 times. Try it once to get over the fear of it. Try it again to get to learn it. Try it a 3rd time to see if you enjoy it or not, right? But you give yourself, just like you're dating, right? You're going to date and see what your heart responds to, what your soul, your spirit, it's called to. But then you don't just find that true love. You have to build it every single day after that. And so my advice to my younger self is, you're responsible for your life. You are enough. And get yourself around people, ideas, and individuals that spark your mind, that light up your heart, and see where your spirit is guiding you, and develop those. That true love is not discovered, it's developed, just like your true love for your passions or your eventual purpose. And that is not predestined. I don't think that our life is predestined towards one purpose. I really don't. I feel like, or one individual. I don't think even that. I feel like that it's built through hard work, but if it's worth the work, then it's worth also the rewards that come from it also as well. So I would say, put yourself around ideas, insight, individuals, continue to learn as you're learning right here. And there's this Zig Ziglar quote that I have, in my library. It's funny that I have a library. I've never really thought about it. I built a library very similar to this gentleman's library early on. But it's just that if you are not willing to learn, nobody could help you. If you're unwilling to learn, nobody could help you. But if you're willing to learn, nobody could stop you. And I would just adjust it a little bit, not just learn. If you're willing to learn and apply what you learn, then you are unstoppable. That you are truly limitless.
Well, Jim Kwik, you are truly limitless when it comes to your ability to teach and inspire the rest of us how to learn. And I want to thank you personally, as somebody who has consumed this book, loved it, absolutely loved it, and has taken one of the Kwik Learning courses. Fantastic. Has listened, of course, to the Kwik podcast. And I just cannot thank you enough for not just making time for coffee today with me and the Time for Coffee community, but being so unbelievably generous with your time and with, actually, that is the most precious gift, your time and your knowledge.
Thank you. And I really appreciate all that you do. I'm so glad that we're able to co-create together on this and collaborate. I hope we get to do it again. And my final message to everybody who's listening to this is don't just be inspired by this conversation. What's one action you could take to be able to make progress? And maybe my suggestion would be to screenshot, in whatever form you're doing this, take a picture of it or screenshot this, or if you're listening to it on podcast, screenshot it and tag Andrea, tag myself as you post on social media, and share one thing, just one thing that you learned here, because they call it the explanation effect, that when you learn with the intention of teaching somebody else, that you actually learn it better. When you teach something, you get to learn it twice. So screenshot this wherever you're listening to it, post it, do one thing that you got this aha about, so that you share it with your fans, your followers, your family, your friends. And I believe that's what we're here. People ask me this question all the time. They're like, Jim, your book's called Limitless, but the world is like very limited. How do you become limitless in a limited world? And my answer is just very clear. We do it together. We do it together. And so post it, share it, tag us both in it, and that way I could see it, what your big aha is. I'll actually repost some of my favorites on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're doing it. I'll gift a copy of the book just to one individual, just as a thank you for being part of this Time for Coffee community, and we'll share it. And don't let this be the end. That I believe that now's the time to be too optimistic to scare, to be too determined to doubt, and do not downgrade your dreams to meet this current situation. Let's upgrade our mindset, our motivation, the methods that we're using to be able to meet and exceed those incredible dreams.
And actually, Jim has in the cover of his book all of that, and also in the back. And I actually wrote a little something on there, but that was just my own mnemonic. But he's got that there. It is an incredible book. It's an incredible gift. We've got Valentine's Day coming up. We'll make a wonderful gift for the person you love, and for any reason.
Yeah, maybe that person is yourself too. And I love that also. So we all need people to encourage us, to cheerlead for us, to challenge us. Yeah. And I would say, if you haven't found that person, be that person for somebody else. Give the thing that you want to receive. You don't give to get, give because it's who you are. That's what we do. We grow, so we have more to be able to give. And no matter where you are right now, if you're going through difficult times, my heart goes out to you. I send you, my thoughts, my prayers that give you strength. But remember that you are stronger than anything that you're facing right now. If you can remember a time when you didn't think that you would survive, you did, and you'll do it again. And just honor. If you ever look back to see how far you've come. And this is just the beginning, that everything starts inch by inch, and little by little, a little becomes a lot, and we'll get there together.
Love it. Love it. Lots of love to you, Jim Kwik. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to pop you out of the stream, but thank you again. It was just wonderful, really wonderful.
Thank
you. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Time for Coffee TV Live. I hope you have an even better rest of your day and rest of the week. And just in the spirit of what Jim just said, sending lots of wonderful, positive thoughts your way. And I hope that this is going to be your best week yet of 2021. Take care.